Welcome to the Mike and Allison After Hours podcast with your hosts, Mike Sheila and Allison Haas, talking business with real business owners in the Mid-Atlantic region. Today's episode is sponsored by Advantage Industries. When you need business technology, get Advantage Industries to protect and promote your business. To learn more, go to www.getadvantage.com and schedule your first meeting to see if you qualify for a free network scan.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mike and Allison After Hours. I am your host, Mike Sheila, and with me today is my always awesome and always on point co-host, Allison Haas. Allison, it is wonderful to see you again today.
I love starting my mornings with you, Mike. I won't lie. Good morning.
We've commented on this show many times that you have to fake it till you make it. And, before the show started, Allison and I do a few minutes of prep just to get our minds in sync. And she was talking about how there's a bit of a Groundhog's Day syndrome going on in the world right now. It really feels like it's wet, lather, rinse, repeat. And there's not a whole lot else going on.
No, and that's why I'm seated in my office, because just what used to be considered fun or different has a brand new meaning, right? It's like, what can I do today that's just different enough to kind of curb that Groundhog's Day effect? So Allison goes to office instead of basement.
Yeah. And I would say, just as a
can.
general principle, we don't recommend drinking a bottle of Jack Daniels and watching an entire episode of Jeopardy, just for the pop culture reference there. All right, so we have a really cool guest today. His name is Jeremy Walsh, and Jeremy and I have known each other for about 5 years. We actually went through a personal development training together, and that's when we became friends. And he brought me in to do some LinkedIn training for his staff a few years ago, and he's been on the cover of Baltimore Real Producers magazine. And he is a serial entrepreneur. And this guy, he's one of these people, and Allison, I know you've been through this. In life, you meet a lot of people that pretend to be more than they're not.
Mm.
And so Jeremy's not that. He is the most sincere, authentic guy. But he's one of these ones that you're almost like, is he really just this cool, this good, this nice? And I say, yes, he is. And guess what? Jeremy joined us already. So we're going to flip the script today. We're going to do this a little differently, and we're going to bring Jeremy in.
Let's go.
All right.
You're on.
Hello, Jeremy. You are on mute. Please take yourself off mute and say hello. Welcome to the Mike and Allison After Hours podcast.
What's up, buddy?
How are you, my friend? It is good to see your face.
I'm good. You too, man. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. I was just giving our audience and Allison a little background on you and I. We met at Pete's Perspective Personal Development Seminar about 5 years ago, and I was telling the audience a little bit of your accolades. You've been on the cover of Baltimore's Real Producers magazine. You are the CEO of Simply Referable, which is a Coldwell Banker franchise. I think that's fascinating. I want to get into that a little bit with you during the show today. Talk about the difference between being an owner and being a franchise owner, because it's one of those, we like to say on this show that nothing's good or bad. Everything's different. So there's a different perspective being a franchise owner. We had Todd Sachs on a couple of weeks ago, and he started his own realty. So it's Todd Sachs Realty. So you went the franchise route. So I'm fascinated to see the paradigm difference between the two organizations. But before we do that, I found this lovely little write-up about Jeremy's company. So I'm going to share this with everyone. What's in a name? For us at Simply Referable, it defines our entire mission. As a referral-driven real estate team, we rely entirely on the satisfaction of our clients, which means we have skin in the game. Our Simply Referable promise to you, as our client, we promise you an approach that puts you, your needs, and your goals at the center of the real estate process. You're more than just a number to us. We know that selling a home is a big move, and we understand the unique circumstances that have brought you to this decision, and because of this, we can get the best results for you. Jeremy. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mike. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so we normally break the show into a couple of segments. We do what we call who, what, where, when, why, how. And we do a segment on leadership. And I know that you are a fellow book nerd. You are one of the few people on the planet that I've met that reads as much as me, if not more, and has read many of the same books that I have. And you've also gone off into some other philosophical directions with your development. And I just to set the table for everyone, I think the thing I appreciate about Jeremy the most is that he is always striving to be a better man, to be a better professional, to be a better husband, to be a better father. And, that was the thing that Jeremy and I keyed in on during the workshop that we did together those 5 years ago. So I'm going to let Allison go through the who, what, where, when, why, how with you for a few minutes.
Sure.
It gives her the opportunity to get to know you better as well as our audience. And then I'll talk through some of the leadership stuff, but we're going to free flow this one.
Okay. Sounds good.
And that's what we do best, Jeremy. So good morning.
Good morning.
It's great to virtually meet you, as is the new way of the world, right? So the first part is as Mike said. So, and this can be taken in different directions. The who part of Jeremy, right? Who are you personally, professionally? What would you like us to know?
So Jeremy Walsh, first and foremost, I'm a husband of 14 years to my wife, a father of two beautiful daughters. One is 9 and one is 10, going on 11. And I'm also, I consider myself to be a servant leader, do what's best in the world to make a difference. And that comes from my spiritual beliefs. And last but not least is that I'm a business person. And, the purpose of my business is that I've found over the years is to really just serve more people. And I think that when you do things with that servant leadership mindset, that, good things happen when you do things for people the right way, and you always take the high road and are always looking to serve people. I think that that's where the magic happens. And so I've been doing this for 14 years, and it's become like a labor of love for me. The people that I've met, the relationships that I've built have just helped me to become a better person all around. And it's also just allowed me to have an influence and an impact in my industry and in people's lives. And I actually, love it more now than I ever did.
I am withholding spewing all over about servant leadership and spiritual. Personally, I start my morning every day of, where do you want me today, right? How can I be of service? And despite being in sales, I'm still others focused, right? I have to be and service focused, because at the end of the day, if it's not the right thing for somebody, one, they're going to know, I'm going to know. And when I go to bed at night, I'm not going to feel good about what I told somebody or shared or the path I tried to lead them down. So I think having that mindset shows, and then you lead your life like that. So I'm super stoked to hear that you agree with me selfishly, right? So thank you for mentioning that. So what I know Mike gave us a beautiful written version of you, and if you had to put it in your own words and what your organization does, what would that be?
I would say that we impact and improve the lives of people through real estate, and that's just not our clients where we're trying to make a difference in their lives. That's also the community that we serve, and that's also the agents that we have in our team, in helping them to become the best version of themselves so that they can get the most out of their life. Mike mentioned it before. I'm a big fan of personal development. I believe that you really can't grow anything until you become, who you're supposed to be and the best version of yourself. And so I'm huge into personal development, and I try to infuse that throughout my organization so that people become better from the inside out. Because if you get better on the inside, then it shows up in your outside world. And I believe that the only way to really grow in business is to grow personally. in your mindset and your methodologies that you use, the habits that you create for yourself, your daily discipline, your daily rituals you just mentioned, and just always like just trying to get just a little bit better every day, and everything that you touch should become a little bit better if you have that mindset.
Mike and I talked about this, I think, last episode, and we talk about it all the time. If you're not growing personally, you're going to be left behind, and then no one's going to follow you or want to do business with you, right? So again, withholding my inner geek right now, I'm huge on personal development as well. I read a lot as well, and I'm constantly looking for ways to be better, right? And unfortunately, still learn by screwing up, right? Sometimes royally, but that's how we learn, right? It's like, probably won't do that again, and if I do, I'm going to try and do it a little bit less distastefully, at least. So on do not disturb, but people can still find a way in. Sorry about that. So yeah, I would love to hear more about that. My father's actually a franchise owner, so I ran those businesses for a couple years, but I'd love to hear the Coldwell Banker vertical version.
Well, yeah. So just to put things in perspective on that, so I don't own the actual Coldwell Banker. What I own is the team and the brand. So what I've done is
Simply Referable, yeah.
I've created Simply Referable team of Coldwell Banker. We haven't franchised that yet, but that's something that we're definitely looking into in the future to be able to duplicate it through multiple markets. So really what happened with me in my career is I started as an individual agent, and I never knew that teams were going to be a thing. I never knew that we were going to be able to build a business out of this, a very profitable and successful business. I just really got in to become a great realtor. And so I thought I was just going to be like a single practitioner. And then maybe one day, when I was 55 or 60 years old, that I would finally have made it. And maybe I would have some people around me. I had no idea. But as I started to grow and as I started to do things the right way and always enter into a relationship with putting people first and serving them the way that they needed to be served, and earning the right to not only earn their business, but also earn their referrals and their introductions after that. What started to happen was pretty amazing. I mean, we started, as an individual agent in 2007. I was part-time, went full-time in 2008. 2008, worst real estate market crash of all time. Had no idea I was going through it. I just kind of put my head down and went for it. At the end of 2008, I was broke. I had no money. Was worried about how I was going to pay my mortgage. And I look back on what I was doing, and I had done like 28 sales, and about 25 of them or 26 of them were relationship based, or they were referrals. And so I decided at that point in time that I was going to build a really strong and successful referral business where, we went all in on our people and served them at a real high level. And then hopefully they would introduce us. And then that's when everything started taking off for me. I started studying the referral process. I started studying how to build better relationships, how to provide amazing service, how to follow up appropriately, so that you became, the person of choice for those people, not only them, but the people that they knew. And then it just kept growing. And, I ended up building out a team out of need versus out of like want. There's a lot of agents out there that just are starting to build teams when they shouldn't be building teams. I built it because I couldn't serve all the people the same way that I was serving them by myself. And so I started to put people in place to be able to create a better service experience. And what I found out was that it freed me up to do even more of what I loved, which is building the relationships and negotiating the deals and being with the people. So that allowed us to continue to grow. And each time I was growing, I was always looking for, like-minded people, really good people that I thought I could bring along the way and help them to have a better life. And so, it just kind of happened like organically. But then, here we are 14 years later, going into our 15th year. And it's been very fortunate, very blessed with everything that's been created.
That's great. And so great bridge toward Mike, but two questions. Where are you located, and where do you all typically do business, and how do we find you to do business with you?
So you can find me on www.simplyreferable.com.
Show notes.
Show notes. Yeah. You contact me direct on my cell, 443-610-5722. Our office where I run my operations team is in Ellicott City.
Mm-hmm.
But we do service the entire state of Maryland, with our main focus being Central Maryland. And we're in the process of expanding into Delaware. So we'll be able to serve people in Ocean City, Maryland, and on the Delaware shoreline as early as this upcoming January. Hopefully, we're in the process of putting that in place. In the future, I think we'll be, across multiple state lines, with DC being closest and Virginia, because we're already able to service people in all of Maryland. So our next step is to find an agent or a great person that wants to represent our brand, and then we build something around them in those markets. And who knows where it goes after that. I'm with helping people develop themselves and develop their businesses, and just taking care of the clients. So that's where we service.
Beautiful. Thank you. Blessed and pleasure to meet you. Mike, take it away.
Yeah, Jeremy, I am so glad that you framed things the way that you did. And before we get into the leadership piece, which I know is at the top of your list, I want to touch on a word that you used and a word that you didn't use that I know is also very important to you. And that is the concept of referrals and the concept of being intentional. And I was telling Allison before you came on that you meet a lot of people in this world that on the surface they seem like, oh, they've got their act together, they're successful, so on and so forth. But one word that Allison and I have seen in all of these episodes is authenticity from leaders. And you are one of the most authentic people I've ever met. But you have this unique quality that you're so authentic. People are like, he can't be that. And audience, I'm telling you, he is. But by every engagement I've had with Jeremy, he is. He's the person that he is putting out in front of you. So I want to start because with referrals, our audience is the small to medium business owner. That is the audience of this podcast. And most business owners get into business for themselves because they're really good at doing that one thing. They have this thing that they're really good at. And they got tired of doing it for somebody else because they didn't like the way the other person was doing it. They said, I'm going to go do this on my own. And normally they have 2 or 3 customers that come with them. And that's the embryo. That's the inception of the business. And for a year or 2 years or 3 years, it'll go well. And they'll build off of organic referrals. And then there comes a day where the housing market crashes, where the stock market crashes, where COVID-19 hits. And now they have to go out and get customers. And they don't know how to do it. And I think that's what kills most small businesses. So, and you and I talked about this when we first met, that creating referrals has to be an intentional action. That you have this network, you have this universe, you have this sphere of influence of people around you. And if you want to be successful, you have to be intentional. And I'll tell you in the audience a funny little footnote. I got an instant message from the president of my company yesterday, and it had an image attached, and it said, Mike, what do you want me to do with this? And it was a piece of mail from Jeremy.
Oh.
And I guarantee you, I haven't seen it yet. My president's going to forward it to me, but I know Jeremy well enough to see that the contents of that letter is something to the effect of, Mike, thank you so much for thinking of me and inviting me to be a guest on your podcast. I can't wait to do it. I wish you and your family a blessed holiday season. It says something along those lines. How do I know that? Because almost every time I have engaged Jeremy, I have gotten a letter or a card just like that 2 to 3 days after our engagement. And that's the authenticity. That's the intentional referral generating that Jeremy does. So just give us a few minutes, Jeremy, on being intentional and the referral process for you, because I think that'll be a real eye opener for our audience.
So, first thing, you asked about was just referral itself, right? For me, I believe that in business, the biggest thing that is lacking in most businesses' success now and in the future is their level of engagement with the clients that they've already done business with.
Agreed.
And so I believe that a lot of businesses are approaching their sales business cycle from a transactional mindset versus a relationship mindset. And so when you're focused on a transaction, you will get it done and it's probably acceptable to the client. But is it an amazing experience? When you're focused on the relationship and putting the people first, and you have that intention of, I'm going to serve you so well, and you set the expectation up front and you tell them that my intention is that I'm going to do such a great job that you will refer me to your family members, friends, other businesses. You already are entering in the relationship in a different state of mind. And every time that you do something, your focus and intention is, am I doing it the right way? Am I coming from the right place? Am I putting the client first? And am I going to have a relationship at the end of this process? If I do those things, I can get a referral. But if I don't do those things, there's no reason that I should even ask for a referral. So not only do you have to set the intention, but you have to earn the right to be able to receive it after you serve
Earning
the client.
Right. Bingo moment for our audience. Earning the right. Wow.
You have to earn the right, and you have to believe in yourself enough, and you have to believe in your company and your service enough that when you get the referral, like, it's not like, oh my God, I got a referral. It's, I deserve this because of the way I serve people. And when the mindset is there and the intention is there and you're ready, willing, and able to accept it with confidence and a humble spirit, that's when all the magic happens. And, for me, when I started this, I wanted to build that type of a relationship. I wanted to build that type of an experience. And like all the other realtors out there, I had my name on my team. It was the Jeremy Walsh team. And then I had a tagline. It was Simply Referable, because that's what I was trying to create, is that experience. And finally, I said, you know what? It's not about me. It's about the people. If I'm going to be sincere in what I believe about what that tagline means, then I'm going to put the people first. I'm taking my face off the sign. I'm taking my name off the company, and I'm making it Simply Referable, which to me is not a name. It's a way of life. It's like, how do you become that type of human being in every area of your life where people want to say good things about you, recommend your services, talk about how good of a father and a husband that you are, and that you're living, life in some sort of balance in this crazy, hectic world that we live in. And you're trying to operate from a place of, contribution and gratitude. And in becoming that type of person, other people are attracted to you. You don't even really have to ask at that point in time, because it just happens because of who you become, which is where it all circles back to the personal development. So intentional referral, I mean, for me, it's a way of life. Like, I even tell my new team members, like, look, this is not a team name. This is like who you need to become if you want to succeed around here.
And being intentional is not something that you teach. Being intentional is something that others learn from you. And I think that's an important distinguish. Again, Jeremy and I have known each other for about 5 years, and he walks his walk. I think that's the simplest way to put it. And I want to key in on one other thing. You and Allison touched on this a little bit earlier. is we, and in general, we do not talk about religion. We do not talk about politics on the show. The show is about business. But I think that sense of spirituality that you bring, I know you are a man of faith. I know that just from engaging with you, but it's more than that. You know, when you talk about spirituality, and I know Allison has a very unique perspective on spirituality. And if you'd like to learn more, read her book. It's phenomenal. The Addict and Allison. But, you know, we all have this, we're this little speck on a tiny little marble in a tiny little galaxy. And when you can look at yourself from that perspective and go, wow, there's a lot going on around us. You know, having a sense of what your spirit animal is, if you will, is very empowering. So, you know, give us a couple minutes on that, because I know you could spend an hour talking about it, but just give us a little of that.
Sure. Well, you know, just through my course, I started really getting into this stuff back, you know, I was 22 years old. So it's been 20 years that I've really been trying to learn and grow, and just become, you know, who I was supposed to be. And, you know, my philosophy on spirituality is more spiritual than it is religious, but it really is just pretty simple. It's that I believe we were created to grow. And I believe that we were created to become the best version of ourselves. And I believe that we were given gifts from a higher being, whatever you want to call it. Some people call it God, some people call it whatever they want to call it. Doesn't really matter. What really matters is that you have some type of belief in that, right? Otherwise, I mean, what's our purpose, right? Why are we here? So with my belief saying that, you know, the reason that I'm here is to grow and to become the best version of myself. Well, then, you know, and I've been given gifts to do that. Then I have to fulfill those given gifts. And the only way to fulfill those given gifts is to continue to grow at a high level and to make it part of my process of life, and to always try to seek to get better. And as a result, what I've learned is that not only is life the purpose of life growth, but the greatest type of growth that we can have and give back to the world is service. And so when you can align, you know, your service or what you do for others, whether it's in your business or whether it's in your personal life, you know, like, how do I help? And I always ask myself these questions. How can I help my family grow today? How can I help my marriage grow? How can I help my kids grow? How can I help my business grow? How can I help my team grow? How can I help my finances grow? Like, how can I continue to make all this better? Well, and then how can I serve while I'm doing that? And the beautiful thing about what I've done and what I have within Simply Referable is that that's all there, right? That's all been created as part of our philosophy of growing and serving. And it's really become almost like, I mean, it's kind of weird to say, but it's almost like we're living like a prayer, or we're living like a this principle of gratitude on a daily basis, because we're growing and we're serving.
Principle of gratitude, bingo moment.
Principle of gratitude. And, you know, you can't receive more in life until you're grateful for what you have. And that includes all the little things in life that other people don't have. So I start every one of my days with gratitude. I have a gratitude jar in my island in my kitchen. My wife and kids write what they're grateful for in there. We throw it in. We review it, sometimes at the end of the month, sometimes at the end of the year. Sometimes they don't know this, but while they're sleeping upstairs and I'm up early in the morning, I go in there and dig and just see what they're saying, just so I can start my day in the right frame of mind. But the other thing is, you know, to whom much is given, much is required. And there is no freedom in growth and getting to the next level, because once you grow, you have more responsibility to do more good for more people. And so that's just you living into your leadership and living into your service and living into your growth. And so, you know, it's a wild journey that we're on here, but you're right. I mean, you got to approach it from a humble spirit, a humble heart, and, you know, go out and do good, and good will happen to you.
You know, Jeremy, we both want to talk.
Go ahead,
Go
Allison.
first, Mike. Okay. So thank you, Jeremy. I also believe that we are an extension of ourselves wherever we go, right? And I think so often, and appropriately so, we compartmentalize who we are, right? This is who I am at work. This is who I am at home. This is who I am in my relationships. This might be in the grocery store. And for me, it's really important that at the end of the day, I am me wherever I go. In a positive sense, right? I mean, I don't need to stand up and, as Mike said, I've written a book and I have a lot of all my personal beliefs in there in print, and that's not the first thing that I lead with when I go into a business meeting, right? However, it is important that I am who I am, and I follow that belief system wherever I go, right? And serve, and I believe that too. And I take inventory every day of myself, right? What am I doing well? What could I do better? Where's the evidence in my life that things are working out despite what my brain may tell me, especially in 2020? And gratitude, right? I have a running gratitude list every day because I think it can be so easy to get closed-minded, especially when you turn on the news and you read the newspaper and you see what's going on in the world. And also for me, knowing that I have grace in my life, no matter what it feels like in the moment. So I just wanted to put a plug in for all those things that you said, and people are attracted to that, right? They're attracted to who you are, and that absolutely applies to business.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, and I want to reframe just for a moment. People that are listening to this podcast today are getting more a sense of self than maybe a sense of business, but I think something that is really critical to realize, Allison and I have talked about this numerous times, is that what Allison does as an HR professional, what I do as an IT professional, these are very intimate parts of a business. You as a business owner, you understand this, Jeremy. The process of hiring new talent, the process of letting go of talent, all the things that go into that. HR is critical to that. We literally couldn't do our jobs without our computers and our smartphones and all the technology that go into that. And when you talk about buying a home, not a house, but buying a home, perhaps the most intimate sale in the professional world, because you are putting people into a place where they will raise their family, where they will have dogs, they will have cats, they will have goldfish, maybe they'll have an iguana. But just think about, and I bring that up because I know if there's a person on this planet that takes that as a factor when helping to sell a home and buy a home, it's you. Like you frame everything through that lens, right?
Yeah.
And it's just incredibly powerful. So, Allison, I'm going to let you just do a quick wrap up with Jeremy. Jeremy, thank you so much for giving us 30 minutes of your time this morning. We're so grateful to have you on the show. Allison, your parting thoughts?
Yeah, this was great. I obviously align personally. And what we love to hear too as an exit is a book or two if you have. I know Mike said you are a book nerd, and he and I both read, and I think that's a huge part of personal development, right? It's not transmitted through the air by osmosis. So what can you recommend that we read next?
So right now I'm reading The 5 Disciplines of Execution. And it's a phenomenal book for all business leaders.
It'll be in show notes.
Yeah, anybody that's leading an organization or leading a cause. I think it just gives you a different perspective on, how to lead. And it's complicated as a leader, right? Because you're always focusing on a lot of different goals that you have, and you're looking at those things pretty regularly, and you're trying to make a difference. But this book is pretty interesting because it talks about having one wildly important goal and focusing all your efforts and all your team efforts and all the accountability and all the activities on that one thing, and that's how you're going to ultimately have an abundance of success. So that's been a great one. And then I can never go without recommending a book, without recommending my favorite one of all time that I've read probably 25 or 30 times. And I try to do it once a year and go back through it. But it's The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. It's not about sales. It's about becoming
That's a classic.
who you need to be in life, and your belief systems, and how to become that type of person that others will be attracted to. And that's the best. And so that's what I'm a very big principle-based book guy. So I don't really as much look for the tactics. I look for the principles, because the tactics change, but the principles never do. And I think that if you can find out what the principle is and you can apply it to your life.
Okay, that's a bingo moment. Principle-based leadership. Wow.
Yeah.
Love it. Jeremy, thank you so much for being a guest on the show today.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate all the good work you're doing out there. It's a pleasure to be with you. This was good for your viewers.
Yeah, I'm sure they're going to love it. Thank you so much, Jeremy. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Thank you.
All right, wow.
Yeah, I'm like, how do I get so lucky to get to talk to people like that and get a reframe, right? We were talking before, like Groundhog's Day. What? I don't even remember saying that now, right? It's just like a recentering, which was awesome. What a good guy.
Yeah, and we didn't really get to go into the normal leadership route that we do on these, but we didn't have to, right?
No, he said it. I mean, in so many ways, it was unnecessary to ask those specifically worded questions, because it was pouring out of him.
And I loved that parting thought. He doesn't look for the strategic; he looks for principle based. And so if you've listened to the show before, I know I've shared this story before, but I'm a big fan of Dr. Stephen Covey and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And if you've not read that book, you still may know the story of the big rocks. So a college professor stands on a podium and he's got this jar filled with big rocks. Or he's got this jar filled with big rocks. And he says to his class, "Is the jar full?" And they go, "Yeah, jar's full." So then he takes a bag of pebbles and he pours that in, and it fills in all around the rocks. And he goes, "All right, it's full now." And they go, "Well, yeah, of course it's full." So then he takes a bag of sand and he pours the sand in, and that fills in around all the pebbles and all the rocks. And he goes, "Is it full now?" And they said, "Well, it has to be full." And then he takes a pitcher of water and the water fills in between the sand and the pebbles and the rocks. And the moral of the story is, if you put your big rocks in first, all the other things have a way of taking care of themselves. And that's principle-based leadership. I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine. I've known him for 20 years. We've been in the same industries now. And one of those, we became friends. And there are times that we've competed with each other, and there are times that we've been vendors for one another. And I was talking to him over the weekend, and we were talking about my boss. And I was telling him about the things that he's put in place and the books that he's read. And his comment, my friend Tim, his comment to me was, most small business owners won't do that. And that's one thing Allison and I have keyed in on, is that we're both beautifully flawed people. And we're both trying to find our way in the world, and we're trying to learn, and we're trying to teach.
Yeah.
And I think Jeremy brought so much of that. So give me your breakdown. This is fun because normally we talk first and then have the guest. So the fact that we had the guest on, we could talk about the things that we pulled out of the conversation. So I can't wait to hear some of your thoughts on that.
Well, I kind of wish I was home in my basement office to write "serve" on a Post-it note and tack it onto my second monitor, because it is so easy to fall back to self and think of, what do I need, right? And then think of immediately, what do I lack, right? Because if I think I need, that means I must lack. And so, I'm at the end of my sales year. I'm real close to where I want to be, but yet so far. And I'm thinking of the people that aren't giving me what I think I need. And he just totally reframes my mind to like, how can I better help and serve these people for the long term? Not even if it's not the answer I want and it's not with me and my place of work. How can I better serve them so that, and I appreciate what he said. I've not won a business, but they've referred me anyway. Right. And how can I genuinely show up today in all of my meetings and be of service? How can I listen? How can I really hear what they actually are telling me? Whether it's what I think I provide or not. Right. And so I just think there's so much power behind that. And I know personally, I was telling you, I've got this overwhelming sense of impending doom happening to me on a regular basis now. And the best way for me out of that is to get into service, right? And to focus on other people. And this definitely gave me a leg up on that on this Spine Tuesday. But also, I've gotten so almost compulsive in this digital space that we're in with our virtual meetings and the ability to go back to back to back to back. The ability to multitask, right? You end a meeting, let me get you something right now, flush out the files. And I've gotten sloppy because I've gotten too fast and I've forgotten the grace in between just slowing down, right? And I've made some mistakes, right? So clearly I'm going all over the board with this, but at the end of the day, like slowing back down and being more mindful in what I'm doing is what I needed to be reminded of this morning. And I feel like a new human already in 30 minutes, right?
I want to key in on two things that you just bubbled to the surface there. This frantic pace, the sense of impending doom, the anxiety, and this time of year. So the recording date of this is December 8th, 2020. You guys will get to hear this in January. And the holiday season has a very odd paradigm to it because there are many people that love and celebrate and do all the great fun things that go with. And there is a significant portion of our society that this is a real struggle for them. And as you mentioned, the environment that we're working through right now. And let's not forget the fact that there are literally hundreds of thousands of people just in the United States that would switch places with us in a moment because they don't have a job anymore.
Yep.
They lost it as a result of COVID, or they're afraid they can go to work, but they're too scared of getting sick or getting their family sick or getting a loved one sick. So this is the time of year that reflection comes up. Allison and I both talked about the fact we're probably going to take the last week of the month off and give our batteries a chance to recharge. And this is when business owners tend to go in and start planning.
Yes.
We just had our annual leadership meeting last week, and it was myself and it was the president and I think 6 other key members of staff talking about, well, what's coming up next year and talking about our scorecard and how we're going to present. And that's a critical part of being a business owner. I worked in big corporate America for a long time. I've worked for arguably some of the largest companies on the planet. And whenever they would try to do team events or they would do your annual review, it was always very antiseptic. It was always very, okay, I've checked off a box. And it seemed to lack the gravitas necessary to really make a difference. And I think that's why I'm staying away from large companies now. And I don't envy them. The CEO of a big box retail company or the CEO of a nationwide communications company, the weight on their shoulder is immense.
Yeah.
And I think we can bring that all back to what Jeremy, perspective, right? The perspective that Allison came in today, the perspective I came in with, and the perspective that Jeremy brought to us. It's incredible.
Yeah. 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 And, big leadership, it is virtually impossible to reach your hands down if you're the leader of a giant corporation and touch everyone. Right. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate what you just shared and the intimacy of your company, right? And the ability to sit down with people and really get their take on how are things going, what do we need to do, and as you add bodies, your reach just evaporates, and that's no fault. That's it's virtually impossible, right? So what can you set into place with teams and verticals and departments and communication between to keep that intimacy alive and to keep the glue together? I mean, you can't, and nothing's perfect, nothing's totally fail proof, but I think as organizations grow, that's a really key thing to key in on. I just used that word twice. Shame on me. But how do you keep your finger on the pulse as you grow, right? Like, so for me, it's making sure you have HR staff, right? You cannot be the best salesman and the finance guy and the operations guy and the chief vision officer, right? Like, hire people to help you delegate and to do your job better, and then work with those people as you build those teams to to keep everything aligned and together, right?
Yeah, and you reminded me of something. I'm going to talk about another Dr. Stephen Covey book, and if memory serves me, he wrote this one with his son. It's called The Speed of Trust. And when two parties in an engagement have trust, the process is always faster, more efficient, and the results are better every single time.
Yep.
So as a leader, as a business owner, your number one priority is to hire people that you can implicitly trust, knowing that they're going to make mistakes, they're going to do things that you disagree with, but you're going to trust them to get it done. And if there's a challenge that the big box companies face, is that they struggle with that the CEO is not putting subordinates under them that they implicitly trust. And then the directors are not putting managers below them that they implicitly trust. And that's how you get these elements of greed and the elements of power struggle. But just thinking about a basic sales transaction, because it's so intimate, it really is about trust. And I've mentioned this before. Now that I have this big fancy title of being a marketing director, I get marketing people that reach out to me all the time. And I read every message they send, and I tell 99.9% of them to go away because they did nothing to try and imbue trust with me. Because on the surface, Allison, there are 1,000 people that can sell HR services to your clients.
Yep.
Just in our market. And
Yep.
I can say the same thing. There are 1,000 people that can sell my clients IT services. In that respect, it's a commodity. And to you, our listening audience, everything that you do is a commodity. And the customer will generally perceive you that way until you give them a reason not to.
Yeah.
And when I do my LinkedIn trainings, I tell people the most powerful thing about LinkedIn is that you can leverage and borrow trust. The number of people that have said to me, look, I don't normally take calls like this, but because Bob said I should talk to you, I am.
Yep.
That's probably 70% of the meetings that I set.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's about being intentional. It's something Jeremy and I talked about a few minutes. When you're referable and your intention you're intentional around that, getting those opportunities grows. That's why Allison and I know each other.
Yep.
A good friend of mine met Allison and said, you need to meet Mike. And because she said, hey, Randy said we should talk, we did.
Yep.
And so for you salespeople out there, start doing more of that.
Yeah.
Be intentional when you reach out to a prospect. Business owners, if you're leading your sales team, if you're leading the sales of your company, you have my utmost sympathy.
Yeah. Oh my God.
But be intentional. Think about, how am I connected to this person? Because if you can do that first, you're going to be successful. Wow, what a great show, Allison. Give me your parting 60 seconds and we'll wrap up.
And being intentional, I think something that it goes back to what we were talking about with Jeremy, like be who you are, right? Like let let's say be who you are in your best light, right? Like be a genuine human, so I email a lot, but I call too. And when I call, I say, hey, it's that chick whose emails keep probably piling up in your spam inbox, right? That's who I am, right? It's sincere. It's not a phony sales message, right? And in my emails too, right? I try and be personable. I still send handwritten notes to people also. So, like, remember you're selling, but who would you buy from, right? You're not going to buy from a robot leaving you a message, that I get too. I don't even know what the hell people are trying to sell me. So, and it doesn't matter. They're going to buy you first. So, try not to compartmentalize all of yourself and all of your affairs, right? Just keep being a human. And if you don't think you're a good one, start reading some books.
Yep. Well, Allison, another great episode. And thank you again to Jeremy, our guest today.
Yeah. That was
For those of you that are watching the show on YouTube, thank you very much. We are as everywhere can be. You can find the show on iTunes. You can find us on Spotify. You will find us on Audible. You'll find us on TuneIn. You'll find us on Podbean. You'll find us on Stitcher. If you are a podcast nerd, we have your nerd of choice. So everyone, Mike and Allison After Hours, thank you so much for listening to the show. And remember, people helping people. It's powerful stuff.
Thank you for joining Mike and Allison After Hours. Tune in next time for another great business owner sharing valuable industry ideas. Want to be a guest on our show? Contact us at answers@getadvantage.com.